Hello, everyone. My name is Lucian. Most of you know me from Twitter as Triangle Investor. Today, I am joined by Mr. John Jentz. John is the CEO of Latitude Uranium, formerly known as Labrador Uranium. John, thank you for coming to my show.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thanks. Let's start with your background. Please tell my audience, who is John Jentz? How did you get involved in uranium, and how did you become a CEO of Latitude Uranium?
Yeah, well, I've always been interested in uranium and mining in general. I was a mining investment banker for 15 or so years at small firms and big firms, both in Canada and in the US. And I found that very rewarding. I really sort of caught the mining bug. And we had a bit of a uranium franchise at a firm called Westwind, which was based in Toronto.
Yeah.
And Phil Williams, who's on our board, was our uranium analyst at that time. So we had a little bit of coverage in the sector. But as you know, in investment banking, whatever sector is going, copper and gold or wherever it goes where it goes, and you have to cover it. But eventually, I got the little bit of the bug to sort of see a project from start to finish, and so I joined the board of a company called North American Palladium, which is a palladium mine in Thunder Bay, just in northern Ontario, and help in that role turn it around a little bit. Got recapped publicly, and then we sold it for $1 billion and closed in late 19. And subsequent to that, in terms of investment banking, I joined a company called Semifo, which is a gold company. It got sold as well, but it was operating two big mines in West Africa and Burkina Faso, and was VP corporate development and strategy and IR there. So wanted to take on. I've always liked uranium, so when the role became available, I jumped at it.
Excellent. Latitude Uranium. The name sounds very powerful. Why did you did? Why the name change?
Well, to reflect, our new asset that we purchased called Angilak is in Nunavut, which is a territory in Canada. Our old historic properties called the CMB, the Central Mineral Belt, are in Labrador. And the previous name of the company was Labrador because that's where the only asset was. So to reflect the changing asset base outside the province, we chose Latitude. It's same L. It's sort of latitude 49,
Yeah.
latitude 50s, which is where Canada is, sort of a geographical reference. And it just kind of worked.
Yeah, definitely. It makes sense. Like you said, company controls two projects, one in Nunavut and one in Labrador. I want to start with your, is it pronounced Angilak?
Angilak, yes.
Okay, with Angilak project in Nunavut. You acquired this project from Valour Metals and closed the deal last month, right?
That's correct.
Okay. My first question, what is the value of this deal?
The value at the time was around 40 million. We paid in shares. We paid 100 million of our shares in $3 million. So at the time the stock was around 35 or 40 cents. So call it high 30s, low 40s at that time.
Okay. Can you give us an overview of this project and the current status, of course, as well as the plans for the project in the next 12 months?
Sure. It's located in southern Nunavut. Nunavut is a territory. Everybody, I'm sure people know that it's got 4 operating mines, and
Yeah.
so the three mines of Agnico, and then Baffinland's got an iron ore mine in there as well. So the province is the territory is very conducive to mining. It's very organized. It's a great place to do business, although it's remote. So drilling costs more. But the grade of the project, the historical grade is 0.69. And so for people in the uranium industry who know that, they know that that's a very high grade. And for people outside the uranium industry, we can give them a gold equivalent. At current metal prices, it would be something in the order of 16 or 17 gram deposit. So, very high grade. And as Agnico has shown in the past, you need the grade to make the project work in a place like that.
Yeah. What do you plan to do on this project? And do you have a budget?
Yep. The budget for this year is $8 million. It's fully funded. We have the cash in the bank. And basically what we're doing is we're going to have a 6,000 meter drill program that has started. We should see some tentative results from the scintillometer towards the end of this month.
Great.
And drilling will continue through August. And so depending on what the assay lab timing is, we hear it's a little backed up. We should get those, we'll definitely get them in this year, but probably more for assays, we'll probably get those in Q4.
Yeah, the problem with labs is still going on.
Well, in Canada, at least, there's only one spot that does uranium assays, and that's in Saskatchewan, obviously because of the Athabasca Basin. So you just have to sort
of course,
put them in and hope for the best.
Yeah, this is a big property, almost 70,000 hectares, and it's 40 by 20 kilometers wide, if I remember correctly. And you have a historical mineral estimate on this project. What does it say?
Yep, the historical estimate is 43.3 million pounds. Again, at the super high grade of 0.69. And so it's about 2.8 million tons. And so when you work through the math, what I'm looking down the road a little bit of plant size, it's not going to be a very, very big footprint, as you compare sort of to the Agnico mines that are 8 or 9, 10,000 ton a day. This might, I don't think we can even get close to 1,000 ton a day. We'd probably be around the 500 ton a day, ultimately. So not a large footprint, which goes well for cap costs and for logistics. And but we're not quite there yet.
But it's not all uranium. You have molybdenum there, copper, and silver.
Yep, they're byproducts, and
byproducts.
Yep, and surprisingly, the moly is interesting. People are hot on molybdenum these days, and again, at current metal prices, it's about 15% of the economic value of the mine. It's not, it's not insubstantial.
Great bonus, definitely.
Yes, great bonus.
Can you tell me more about the infrastructure there? How is the accessibility to this project? Any roads, power nearby? Former camp is there, right?
The former camp is there. There is no electricity. You have to generate your own electricity, which we do. Again, but it's a small camp, so that it's not at this point. It's not a great concern. In the winter, they have ice roads, so you can drive things in, drive things out. It obviously has to be frozen, which it is, 7 or 8 months of the year. In the summer, it's obviously not frozen as it is right this instant, and so you have to fly in. So it's fly in, fly out.
Yeah. But do you have a longer-term plans for this project? Let's say in the next 2 or 3 years. What do you expect to achieve in the next 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, 100%. So for this year, again, the 6,000 meter program. Next year, we hope to get some winter drilling in. Winter drilling hasn't been done there for at least 10 years. Yeah. So we need to see if the camp is up to snuff. Yeah. Because there's a lot of the topology of the land is very flat. There's no trees. It's very flat, but there's lakes and bodies of water everywhere. So obviously in the summer you can't drill on those, you can't prospect on those. But in the winter you can obviously you just need to get yourself organized. And so for next year, if we can do that, we're going to have a more substantial program, something north of 10,000 meters. And subsequent to that, in next year, we'll update the resource because we believe that the greatest path to value creation in the short term is to demonstrate to people that the resource can grow. Hopefully it can grow a fair amount. The resource has been the same for about 10 years. It hasn't been updated since about 2013. And so what we're hearing from the shareholders and from the market in general is that they want to see that resource grow. Yeah. And so in the next 2 years, that's our plan. And then we'll update with a formal resource update at the end of next drill season.
Nice plan. Let's get to your CMB project in Labrador. Can you tell me what's the current status of this project? And the same question, plans and budget for this one.
Yep, the CMB project, the Central Mineral Belt project in Labrador. It's quite a big project. It's about 125 kilometers long. It's almost too big. It has some historical resources at what's called Anna Lake, Morin Lake, and Mustang Lake. And so what we're doing this year is we got a $4 million budget. The vast majority of that, about $3 million of it, is for an airborne radiometric survey. That survey is about $3 million. It will hopefully show, again, this property has never been under the same ownership, so we've never been able to fly the survey in a complete sense that way. And so what we're hoping to show is that there's uranium occurrences where we don't know, and we'll show that. And secondly, the team's very keen on potential IOCG, iron oxide, copper gold potential. And if it is there, the ground survey will show that. And if it is, then we'll decide how we follow that up.
Okay, same question about the longer term plans. What is the plan for the next 3 years for this project?
Yep. Well, I mean, it really depends on what the survey shows. If there is IOCG potential, that obviously takes the property in a little bit different direction. If there are occurrences that we're unaware of, we have to follow those up. And if it turns out that none of that happens, the other part of our budget this year, about $750,000, is doing some geophysics on what's called Mustang Lake, which is very close to it's just slightly northeast of the Michelin deposit. The Michelin deposit is quite large; it's about 127 million pounds. It's owned by Paladin, and we're sort of on trend of that. And so, that survey will be the geophysics will be done, interpreted probably towards the end of this month. Probably early next month, and hopefully that will show some additional targets for drilling over the next year or two.
What's the distance between your property and Paladin property? Approximately.
About 5 kilometers. It's not very far. It's fairly close.
Is there any other exploration companies adjacent to your property besides Paladin?
No, Paladin would be the biggest one. Obviously, Voisey's Bay is north of us, but it's quite a bit north of us.
Okay. Is your company pursuing any other M&As, or the plan is to stick with these 2 projects and develop them and increase the value with more exploration work? What's the plan here?
I mean, we're very happy with our Angilak purchase, and we think that in the next few years, demonstrating that resource growth is really going to put some underlying economic value that it's tangible, people can see it, they can assess however they wish to assess on a value per pound or however they want to judge the economics. But that being said, we always keep our eyes and ears open for other projects that can potentially add value. But we're not going to do anything. We're not going to do anything stupid either.
Of course. But is there an option that you spin out your second project or find a partner for it? Is that option on the table?
That's all options are on the table. If Paladin wanted to do something, us to them, we to them, someone to both of us, that the projects in the ground sort of, make that a sort of a logical one. That's on the table. It's all on the table. If there's IOCG potential, that's obviously when you find them, something like a Olympic Dam in Australia and an algae, they tend to be quite large. So they tend to not be a small company type project. So, would we vend it out? Would we partner in? However that would work. All those options are on the table.
For a good number, of course. It has to be a good number,
sure.
Of course.
Has to make sense. Make sense.
Tell me more about Nunavut and Labrador. How is doing business there for one uranium exploration company? Do you have any obstacles there, or everything is okay?
Everything's pretty good. I mean, I think, again, in Nunavut, Agnico has done us all a great favor demonstrating to people. I mean, the big concern there when Agnico came in and there were no operating mines, the local population, they rely on caribou. It's a source, it's a food source. It's very important to them. And that was one of the great concerns about having mines. What would it do to the migration patterns, to the herds, to what's going on? And I think they've been there for at least 10 years, and there's been no uproar, there's been no negative effects. So that's quite good. The 4 operating mines in Nunavut are the largest private sector contributor to the economy, and so I think people have both at the territorial level and the government levels and the local community levels have seen that, economic development can bring some economic benefit, and the communities can use that to their benefit. So, doing business there, although remote, you have to fly in, fly out. The people are quite good. We do employ locals to assist at the camp, and again, they work at the mines at Agnico and Baffinland. So there is some building expertise within the territory in Nunavut, and same basic idea in Labrador. I mean, Voisey's Bay has been going. There's lots of good, solid technical help. It's doing business there is, again, it's remote, so it's costly, but it's all the logistical supports, helicopters, people are all present. So doing business there is not an issue.
What about First Nations? Is there any issues with them?
I mean, there's both First Nations at both of our properties. And I mean, as long as you're a good corporate citizen, you do what you say you're going to do, and you take it in measured steps over time.
Yeah.
People want what everybody wants. They just want they want jobs. They want economic development. They don't want crazy stuff in their backyard. And so, as long as you're a good corporate citizen and you do things by the book, follow the rules, involve the local community, involve them at every stage. It's just basic blocking and tackling, and it just takes a few years to work through the process.
Yeah, you got that right. Let's talk about share structure. Do you know what number of outstanding shares do you have at this moment, and what is the current number of warrants and options?
Yep, we're just a little over 200 million shares, or 203 million shares outstanding. There's about another 35 million options and warrants outstanding. Most of those are out of the money at current. And at the current stock price of around 23, call it 25 cents for easy math, it's around a 50 million market cap today.
Okay. One metric that a lot of investors love to hear is skin in the game. How is the situation with your company? How many shares do you hold personally? How many shares does management have there?
Management and the board is probably around close to 5%, give or take. Myself personally, I have some options. I haven't been able to buy shares currently. I only joined in April, and because of the Angilak acquisition.
Yeah, I understand. The window for buying, for an insider that is new in the company is very short. I understand that. That's reasonable. What about the people behind the company? Who are they?
Shareholders or management and board?
Sorry, management. Sorry.
Management, yeah. I mean, obviously, myself, I'm the CEO. Our VPX is a lady by the name of Nancy Normore. She is a trained geologist. She worked at Kigavik, which is just north of our mine in Nunavut, and so she's got about a 16-year track record in uranium. She worked in the Athabasca Basin. She's worked in Nunavut. She's worked in uranium, and so she's terrific. We've got a technical team based in St. John's, about 6 people. It's a small team, but it's a very efficient and productive team. Most of those people are up in Nunavut right now, and at the board level, we've got a good experience both in uranium and in general mining, and so from a shareholder base perspective, we've got a good blend of institutional, retail, and corporate, and some private equity people, both in the shareholder base. So it's a reasonably broad.
Do you know the percentages, maybe?
Oh, it's tough. I don't have them off the top of my head.
Okay.
Some of the corporates don't mind us using their names. Some corporates would prefer we don't use their names.
Okay, I understand. Can you tell me what's the cash balance at this moment?
Yeah, $15 million. And so, our 2 programs are $8 million in Nunavut and $4 million in Labrador. So we're fully funded with a little bit of runway to go for this year at least.
So that means 40 million in the ground and 1 million for G&A, or we will see new private placement in the meantime.
Oh, I mean, we'll need to raise money at some point. I don't know when that's going to be, but for the next little while, we're fine. We're exclusively focused on the 6,000 meters up at Angilak,
Yeah.
and I'd love to get more meters if we could, and we've got a small little float that can accommodate that, assuming that on the ground that they can accomplish that.
Great. And can you please tell me how can investors reach out to you?
Oh, I mean, by email, you can call, you can email as you wish. Email is jjentz, JJENTZ, at latitudeuranium.com. So send an email to info@uranium.com. We get them all. We're a small team. We're efficient. So everything will be answered.
Great. One final question. On what other commodities are you bullish besides uranium? And name 5 if you can.
Name 5.
Yeah.
Well, I always like gold, but I like copper as well. Yeah, I kind of like rare earths as well. It's an interesting, bit of an odd industry. It's tough to, in copper and gold, there's lots of research, lots of stuff to sink your teeth into, and things like the rare earths. It's a very obscure, even smaller, and uranium's a tough market in terms of the limited number of participants, the limited number of companies. But things like rare earths are even more limited and more obscure because China basically controls the market. So it's interesting.
Please, just another question about the uranium macro. We didn't touch on that. What do you see for uranium spot price in the remainder of the year, and how do you see uranium stocks performing for the remainder of the year?
I mean, I think for the uranium, my personal view is I think we're in a sort of a 5 to 10 year secular bull market in uranium, and the reason for that is when you look at the numbers of global energy demand and global energy sources, you just can't, without uranium and nuclear, even with it, you may not be able to make the numbers work. But if you want to get all these fossil fuels, if you want to get oil and coal either out of the system or reduced in the system, your choices are your nuclear and hydro and other renewables. The issue is that in the current world, solar and wind, although great, don't provide they can't provide the base load power for electricity grids at the current time. They're working on it. Hydro and nuclear can. The constraint with hydro is you need run of river in elevation, and so if you have that, great. If you don't have that, well, you can't create it out of thin air. It doesn't work, and so you have to. I think your only option, therefore, is nuclear. And so, if you want to talk about net zero and reducing carbon emissions, and combine that with energy security, given the Russia-Ukraine issue that's going on, is it going to spike tomorrow? Is it not going to spike? But that's why I say it's a 5 to 10 year secular bull market, because that's the environment we're in. The numbers, you can't change the numbers. The numbers are the numbers, and people want electricity, people want power, people want to heat and cool their homes. I mean,
that's
the way it works.
Definitely. And what about uranium stocks?
Well, I mean, I think I take the analogy from sort of what we used to see in copper and gold, is that when people get interested in this sector, the money and the valuations tend to flow to the big caps, and then they tend to sort of trickle through the system. So I think in a downward fashion. So I think what we're seeing now is if you look at Cameco as the bellwether, at least in the North American markets, it's experiencing a good run, a good valuation. Below them, people like NextGen are experiencing a little bit, but it hasn't quite gotten through the system. Is that going to take 6 or 12 months? Yeah, could be a little sooner, could be a little later. But generally, to the extent that if I'm correct in my 5 to 10 year cycle, when that happens, all those stocks like us are gonna rebound. And if you're interested in the sector, you want to be there ideally before that happens.
Definitely. John, I want to thank you for being my guest, and I want to advise investors that they look for any possible news soon, right? On your website, or to watch out. So we could see some news with your Angilak project soon, right?
we will see some scintillometer readings towards the end of this month, with assays to follow, and drilling is continuing. So we're going to see drilling results from the end of this month through to the end of the year.
Great. I wish you luck with those results and with your projects. And thanks once again for being my guest.
And again, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Thank you very much.